Hello everyone. We're here from. It's been quite a while. It's been quite a while. We haven't been on live on a show, so I'm very happy that we are managing to come back to an event where we can, present you all the games and make sure that you are aware of a lot of the stuff that's going on. I've got Ian with me today, which is
hi guys.
Which is great because you have.
I don't know which one to look at. There's no light.
Oh gosh, you should be. I think you should be watching that number two.
Number two. Okay.
And we're here with Ian, and you haven't been around in Milan for a long time.
So not since before COVID. So yeah, it's been years since we've been over to the office, and this is the first time we've seen your new office, but it's actually now your old office, and there'll be another new office in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, so we'll tell you a bit more about that later. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on, and we have a pretty tight schedule today about a lot of things we want to say, and one of the sort of differences between this event and all the previous ones we've done is this one is going to be 100% about war games.
Yep.
So Ian, we've been thinking about this for a long time, Slytherin and these events being called Home of Wargamers, but in the end not a lot of war games being shown. So we have now sort of decided that whatever is Matrix is a war game, and whatever is Slytherin is a strategy game, or embraces a wider spectrum of things. Can you tell us a bit more about this and how we're going forward with that?
Sure. So over the last few years, we were starting to try, and the differences between Slytherin and Matrix were starting to blur the lines, and we've made a conscious decision recently that we really wanted to serve our two communities differently. There is a different audience for the more hardcore deep war games than there is for the more mainstream lighter games, and we wanted to make sure that we were delivering content that really targeted those different audiences and gave a clear partition. The Matrix audience is the more hardcore war game, and Slytherin is the more mainstream branded games, those kind of things.
Yeah, hence this event is trying to kick this off. I mean, we've got a pretty interesting week because this is a week where we celebrate war games. So we've got promotions. You've seen, if you've been following a lot of live stream about new war games or old war games with new content and so on. So it's really, this week is all about war games, and we wanted to also attach this event to this celebration week where we can update you guys about all the big franchises and where they are heading to. One of the things we were discussing earlier on with Ian was it is getting harder to make war games these days. Although there's a big market out there and the sales are going up, it's becoming very hard to actually make the war games.
It is. There's definitely, like you say, the demand is there for the games, but the expectations are increasingly high. So people are expecting more modern user interfaces, but they still want the depth, and those things all start to combine to create a development requirement that is increasingly difficult, and it's harder and harder to find the developers that can deliver on both the kind of the quality that people are now expecting and that depth. And so it's a really interesting time, but it's also it's a tough time for developers. The bar is being raised generally across the board.
And there's one thing about developing war games over the years have shown as one of the other problems is that most of the developers who start their career in development war games are coming from a passion for war games, right? So they start as a hobby really, and before this turns into a proper job, it has to sort of mature into something tangible. That's not always the case.
No, it's definitely true. A lot of the big games we've got, things like the War in the East, the Gary Grigsby's, and Flashpoint Campaigns teams, they came from a time where they have a kind of strong background in tabletop or board games, and then that passion came across into the computer, so they had that grounding in these really deep games, but those guys are now starting to retire out of the industry, so we're seeing some of the kind of the bigger names getting to the point where they're getting nearer the end of their careers, and we need that fresh blood coming through with that depth of understanding of these hardcore war games, but the development skills as well.
One of the positive notes is that some of these commercial war games are breaking into new ground in the professional area, and this is something that we've seen and we've sort of helped also grow over the last few years. Tell us a bit about how that part of the business is helping the commercial side of things going and growing.
Yeah, it's been really interesting the last few years. There's been a huge growth in demand from the defence side for simulation and wargaming capabilities, and the flagship for that for us is Command, which has made a lot of progress there. It's being used quite widely across defence, and that's led to an increase in funding, and the size of the Command team has at least tripled in the last couple of years. And a lot of new features and content has been added. And one of the things, if you're part of the Command community, you will have seen that in the beta update that's coming through. It's called Tiny, but it's an incredible amount of content that's coming in that update. And Dimitris, I think, will tell us a bit more about that soon.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to focus on the commercial side of things, but if you guys have questions, if you want to know more about some of this stuff, tell us about it in the chat, and we'll answer the questions as we go during the live stream. The next bit we'll have Dimitris connecting from Greece, talk us through about Command and the next DLCs. Before we get to that, remember that, and I'm going to the commercial part of things, but remember that there's a sale going on the Matrix site. If you want to complete your collection of Wargames, there's a lot of bundling opportunities. You complete your bundles. If you've got like 3 in a franchise and you miss 1 or 2, same on Steam. So just don't waste that opportunity. A big thank you to Alienware, who's providing us with a lot of technical equipment, and they've been helping also the wargaming side of the business, which is great for that, being able to use their equipment in some of these live streams and testing the games. So let's go into the connect to Dimitris, see what we have in house. Let's try and see. Hello.
Hi guys.
Hi Dimitris.
Hi Dimitris.
Glad to see you both.
How's things over there?
It's getting late here.
It's been a long journey, Dimitris. Ian was saying that your team is now tripled in size, so you must be proud of all you've achieved so far.
Proud and very excited. It has been quite a development, and as Ian pointed out, there has been a huge help from the work we have done on the professional side, and I think people are already beginning to see the fruits of that work on the commercial side as well.
Yeah, there's a real synergy, isn't there, Dimitris? So the professional side is providing funding, but also some interesting feedback and guidance on how we should do things, and then the commercial side is providing enormous amounts of resource for testing and for research, and those two things are working really well together, and like I say, the synergy is really strong between the commercial and the professional versions.
That is correct. There is sometimes a misimpression on the civilian space that the professionals don't want to share any information because everything is classified, etc., which is simply not true. The professionals can share a ton of useful information. Of course, they cannot share everything, but they are willing to provide a lot of information that is available out there for research, for pretty much everything. And obviously there has been a tremendous opportunity for us to exploit all that knowledge and embed it both on the commercial and professional editions of Command.
So today, Dimitris, we want to focus on the commercial side of things, but we'll leave a little bit of time after this bit to answer some of the community's question, if they have a question about the pro side of stuff as well.
Certainly.
One of the things we're focusing today on is the new DLC for Command, and it's a DLC we're pretty proud of because there's a lot of very interesting stuff happening with this DLC, and it's Command Falklands. So can you tell us a bit about it, and just go through a bit about what the DLC is about?
Yes, so Falklands is a new upcoming DLC for Command. It focuses on the historical Falklands conflict in 1982. It covers the period from right after the taking of the islands by the Argentinian military all the way to the final battles for the retaking of the islands by the Royal Navy and British Task Force. It covers all the major historical engagements of that conflict, all the news from the headlines, plus a few hypotheticals. There are... sorry, go ahead.
No, go, just to see that, to understand a bit more about it. So you're playing from both sides. So you've got like units coming from both sides,
yes.
And you can. How's the structure of the DLC in that regard?
So just over half of the scenarios are playable from the British side, and the remainder also from the Argentinian side. Obviously, that's a matter of design preference, but depending on what actually is being represented on each scenario, it makes sense to play some scenarios from one side and some others from the other. For example, the scenario that we are currently watching, this is the big all-out attack that the Argentinian Air Force mounted on the British Task Force on, I think, the 5th of May of 1982. This was the big missile attack that historically resulted in the destruction of the destroyer Sheffield. The Argentinians were actually hoping to successfully attack any of the two carriers, but they had to settle for what they could get. So this is an example where playing from the Argentinian side makes a lot of sense, as from that side you have to make a lot more decisions on how to attack, which is your best course of success. We're seeing now live an example of this attack and the difficulties that they encountered from the defensive cap screen of the British Sea Harriers. So this is an example where it makes sense to play from the Argentinian side. There are other scenarios where it makes sense to play from the British side, for example, the handling of the San Carlos landings, or some of the attacks on the Argentinian facilities on Port Stanley and other places.
What do you think is making this? I mean, there's many DLCs out there, right? So every DLC has its own peculiarities and is strong for something very specific. What do you think that makes this DLC different and more interesting for the players?
As with some other campaigns, this too is based on historical events. So the player has the opportunity to participate in some of the big historical battles that took place on that conflict and try to examine how things could have gone differently, what the probabilities were, what the actual difficulties posed by both sides were, and so on. In terms of this specific conflict, you could argue that together with the Yom Kippur War, this was really the dawn of the introduction of guided weapons in naval warfare in a big way. I mean, we already had several cases of that in the 1973 conflict between Israel and the Arab nations, but this was really the conflict that drove home, made names like the Exocet or the Sea Harrier or the Sidewinder really made them into household names, so to speak.
One of the things that's interesting about Falklands of this DLC is that it's being developed and researched by someone who was actually part of the conflict, is it?
That's correct. The creator of this DLC is Paul Bridge, who was actually a Royal Navy officer, and he took part in that conflict aboard the frigate Plymouth.
See, how's the DLC played? Is it set up in chronological order, and is it do you play it like historically from both sides, and how's it structured as a whole? And is there something like extra on top of the historical scenarios as well?
Most of the scenarios are arrayed indeed in chronological order, although of course the player is free to play them in any order that he actually wishes. There are a couple of additional hypothetical scenarios which are interplaced between the actual historical events. So for example, there is a scenario in which the player from the British side has access to the Ark Royale carrier, which was historically retired in 1979, but in this case the player can still command it and take control of Phantoms, Buccaneers, airborne early warning aircraft, etc. And there is another even more ambitious hypothetical scenario, in which case the player gets control of the CVA-01 carrier, the aborted supercarrier of the 60s, in which case he's tasked with actually performing strikes on the Argentinian mainland itself, which again historically never happened, but could have.
When you decide what is the next DLC and what to do next in a commercial side of things, how much of the input of the team is present, and how much is it based on creative ideas, and what's the process in getting into deciding if a set of scenarios is viable for commercial release?
Obviously, first of all, it has to be an interesting conflict or a subject. It has to be something that we ourselves will gladly want to play. So it has to be something interesting, either an interesting hypothetical or a fascinating real-life historical conflict or subject. And then there's an entire process of actually coming to a decision as to what is going to be modeled, if it's going to be a campaign or if it's going to be a common set of scenarios dealing with the same subject, which was, for example, the case with the Silent Service, which dealt with submarine warfare. It's a convoluted process, and there have been quite a few ideas which have been temporarily set aside because they were not judged to be mature enough or enough material or content. So you may begin with 10 different proposals until you arrive at maybe one or two which have been sufficiently developed and are judged to be quite mature enough for release. So for example, I could probably say that at the moment there are several more DLC ideas being explored, and some of them are being actively developed, and we will see the order at which those DLC packs will be actually released.
When is Falklands releasing, Dimitris?
Certainly before the end of the year.
All right, it's not too long. I was looking at the best-selling games we're having on the Steam Wargames sales this week, and Command is up there as being #1 still. It's you're celebrating how many years of the release of Command, modern Command, or Simano, as we called it once. How long ago was it released?
It's been 9 years now in all its incarnations.
Does it feel longer or shorter?
Definitely longer.
It's pretty impressive that a game can maintain an audience for that length of time, but not only maintain it, but grow it, and it's continually adding new features. The new features that you're looking at adding that will be developed on the professional side and rolling across, they won't be in Falklands, but they'll be coming soon afterwards, I think, won't they, Dimitris?
That is correct. We are hot right now on finishing up and polishing the so-called tiny update, as you previously described it, which, as you mentioned, is absolutely huge. I could say it's the biggest update we've done since the initial release of CMO. We hope to be able to release it before the end of the year officially, but usual caveats apply. It is going to be a huge release with many new features. Those that have already been beta testing it in public are aware of how big an update it is and how big a step forward it is. And I certainly hope that we will be able to meet everyone's expectations once we go live officially with this.
And that will be a free update, Dimitris?
That is correct.
Is there anything we can say about it?
If you want us to, there's a whole lot you could say about it.
Say something, drip feed stuff.
Where to start, really?
Just a couple of things that...
Start with AMP.
Between the strike planner improvements, which basically allow you to synchronize even massive multi-domain strikes with just a few clicks, the new missile kinematics, which for anyone who comes to Command from dedicated combat flight simulators like Falcon 4 or DCS, those missile mechanics should be very familiar. Everything from the amphibious and operations planner, which allow you again to structure multiple missions with different priorities. Really, where to end?
when we showed some of these features to the professional audience in Quantico a couple of weeks ago, they were incredibly excited. They were like children on Christmas morning. Some of these features really will make a huge improvement for players.
What was Quantico? Can you explain the CUC?
So yes, it was probably about 4 weeks ago now, that we went across to Quantico, so US Marine Corps headquarters, and this is something we're doing annually these days. We get together the users from around the world, professional users of Command, and bring them all together it's a kind of a blend of training slash this kind of community of practice type things. They also went off and did a classified version, so they created their own community of practice within the defense industry, which we can't attend because it's all classified briefings and talk about what they're sharing with each other. We had the Air Force, the Navy, we had different nations, so the Greeks, Navy was there, UK had the STL there, Spanish were there. There weren't as many international attendees because we're still in a bit of a post-COVID time.
Yeah.
But it was all about... So go on,
if I may interject on that slightly, it's very funny because you see a lot of guest presentations during those events where they show you what the various organizations are doing with Command PE. And
that's the most interesting part of it.
It's incredible what they show, and then they tell you, oh, there's also a classified briefing where we discuss even more. And you think, what the hell are they doing on top of what we're seeing?
So it's a blend of us presenting and showing the new features and explaining how things work. But the most interesting part of the week is the users actually do presentations. So each day there's two members of the community, University of Data and the US Marine Corps, the Air Force, Air Mobility Command. They all present how they're using Command in their Wargames or what research they're doing. And it's really interesting finding out what they're doing. And it really feels like you're doing something important.
So it's almost getting out of your hands, Dimitris. You don't control it anymore.
It's already become too wild a horse to ride single.
And yes, also Quantico is a moment where you actually get all the team together. Is it? I mean, all the command development team gets together.
Most of the team, yes, and it's a rare opportunity these days, seeing as the team is normally distributed globally.
Yeah, it's also a big achievement that you get everybody in the same room, and it's also a way for us to introduce other war games to professional players. Right?
It was, and a number of the games that we're going to be talking about today were actually presented to the attendees of the event.
All right.
So, modern naval warfare, combat mission, nuclear war simulator, Flashpoint Campaigns. I think, they were all covered. They all had their own separate kind of sessions where we were showing them, and
cool.
It's really useful for generating that extra interest in those things.
Right. So if there's any, I can't see the live chat. If there's any question from the audience and everything, I'm gonna briefly see them in our internal chats as well. Dimitris, is there anything that you think that you have not achieved so far with Command, and is your dream to get to at some point add to the game, or where do you take it from here in your
this could take hours to answer.
Yeah, there's
Just
a ton of things. Every year when we make our future directions presentation in the Command User Conference, it's the single presentation that takes up almost an entire day because we cannot stop talking about future ideas and implementations and things that we would like to add. And of course, the best part is that many of those ideas do end up getting approved and funded and developed, and they end up not only on the professional edition, but many of them become part of the commercial version. So all this vision about how to build something and what to build does end up getting at the hands of the end users, and of course that's the greatest satisfaction for us.
One of the things that was very clear up until I got involved or kind of was still part of the discussion, which was now sounds like a long time ago. It was almost a balance between answering the needs of the industry, of the defense industry, like, you know, develop this for us because we need this feature to be added to the game, and our, you know, vision of where we wanted the game to go to in the long term. Is it still the case that you have to balance these two things, like external requests and work and custom work, with, you know, where you think the game should go in the future?
There is always the need to balance those, but it is tempered by the fact that there is a significant overlap. So when professionals tell us that we need this and that and the other thing, and we tell them, yes, we too want to do this and that and the other thing, and that often results in something that both the commercial players and the defense professionals want. It may differ in the details or the matter of how much information we make available between those two editions, or how customizable it's going to be. But the core simulation aspect or major user interface functionality or some other major part of the system as a whole, it ends up being used by both parties. And that, of course, is a huge bonus for us.
Yeah, I think it's also part of the fact that you know, the team is growing, so you're able to manage more requests and more of the,
absolutely,
you know, current work.
Absolutely. We're not anywhere the team we were even 3 to 4 years ago.
One question from the chat is the role of drones and where it is going in the future, and how you see them becoming you know, an even bigger part in command. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yes. So command, of course, already features unmanned systems, a huge variety of them. We have a number of different development proposals for more faithfully modeling their peculiarities, both their strengths and limitations. For example, one of the recent additions we had to the database schema, which is not actually implemented scene-wise, but is there, is to model different degrees of autonomy. So you may have everything from, so basically this defines the reaction to when positive control and communications is disrupted with a certain autonomous unit. So you can have everything from, even if my communications are disrupted, I will just sit there, not do anything. And if I'm a flying drone, I will literally fall to the ground. All the way to advanced autonomy, I don't care. I'm designed to operate on my own. I'll go out and perform my mission and return to base without any necessary degree of control. And there's also a few different degrees in between. Another case is manned-unmanned teaming, which is a very popular subject at the moment, how manned platforms will interoperate with unmanned systems. What roles will they undertake? Will they simply be additional weapon carriers? Will they be advanced scouts? Will they enable distributed electronic warfare or distributed sensor netting? There are tons of things and prospects and ideas currently being explored on the professional side, and obviously command has to be a part of that, and we have a number of different development items currently in production in order to better model those. So there is a huge interest in that development, both from the commercial and of course from the professional world.
It's incredible how this game almost like you need to keep it up to date, not only from a database perspective, but functionalities are just...
It's so true, because you were kind of asking Dimitris, is the game done, or when do you think it will be done? But in reality, it'll never be done, because the technology it's based on is constantly changing.
I've got one last question, although we sort of briefly touched on it. There's an unmissable question for every single live stream we had about command in the past, and it's, what about multiplayer?
And our answer to that, it is coming. I know we've said that before, I recognize that, but I can say it's coming. And it's going to be better than we originally envisioned.
And it's going to be part of this tiny update, is it?
No.
No, it's after that.
Okay.
And I can also refer to two other big developments that are also in the pipeline. One is a completely new map rendering system, much more performant, and also the adoption of 64-bit architecture.
I think you're just sending waves,
that
waves
means
of excitement.
we can deal lots of more entities and scale everything up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. In one of our internal tests, we had run a scenario of 160,000 units.
Wow. Okay, that's becoming
as an example.
That's becoming like it already scares me what this game can do, but it's going to be becoming even more now. So, Dimitris, thanks a lot for joining us. It was great to open it with you.
It's been great having you guys.
And I'll probably get you on one of the next upcoming tea times to give updates to the players, because I think there's so much happening that it's requiring a more frequent update for our fans out there.
We'll be here.
Okay. Cheers, Dimitris.
Thanks, Dimitris.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Right, so that was already a lot. It could have been a live stream of its own. So
yep.
it's interesting.
Dimitris can talk for hours.
Yeah, but he says very interesting things.
Oh yeah, without repeating anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's great. So this was the first part. We're having you know the agenda. So we've got like a bit of contributions for upcoming games now, and we're going to have a live connection with modern Naval Warfare guys in a few minutes. We've got now a bit about War in the East, which is I think it's the longest running wargaming franchise we've got.
It could be. It's been around for well over 10 years now, hasn't it?
And we've had this great celebration early in July where we had like the 40 years of Gary Grigsby's games. So this is great, and we are going to show you a bit about the new DLC for War in the East 2. So take a look.
So the War in the East series began with War in the East 1 in 2010 and expanded to War in the West, and now the War in the East 2 system, which has a lot of nice new features and covers the entire operations in the Eastern Front in World War II. Now with the Steel Inferno scenario pack, we get to explore a lot of the operational battles that happened during the war. Those battles that last between 3 and 9 months and cover the areas of an army group or so are really fit well into the series. So we've got 8 new smaller scenarios that run from anywhere from 3 to 9 months, and 2 new campaigns. The new campaigns allow you to jump in at different points of the war. We have the 1943 campaign that starts with the Operation Citadel around Kursk and goes to the end of the war, and then the 1944 campaign that starts in May of 1944 during a lull in operations before the big summer Soviet offensives. So now players can start at different points of the war and play the entire campaign through from there. So that gives people more visibility on different times of the war. With the original game, the Stalingrad to Berlin and Vista to Berlin gave you those starts in 1942 and 1945. So of the 8 operational scenarios, 2 of them cover new areas of the map. One of them, the Drama on the Danube scenario, starts in the summer of 1944, and it covers operations in all areas of Yugoslavia. So it includes the partisan forces in Yugoslavia and starts with the beginning of the Soviet advance through Romania. So it includes the interesting part of the war in Yugoslavia where Germans are trying to evacuate out of Greece and get back to the north and escape what was happening with the Yugoslavians and the now Soviet allied Bulgarians cutting those forces off while the Soviet armies are advancing through Romania and into Hungary. So it's a really exciting scenario that has some interesting dynamics to it, where the Germans are actually sort of on the offensive in Yugoslavia, trying to get their forces an escape path from Greece, while the Soviets are bearing down on them. So and that adds all of Yugoslavia, which wasn't used in the main campaign. Another scenario is the Road to Karelia, which includes southern Finland in the Road to Leningrad scenario area. So it covers Army Group North, attack towards Leningrad, and includes the Finnish forces in that. So those are two new areas of the war. Another set of scenarios has to do with the operations in the Caucasus in 1942 and 43. So we have a smaller scenario that covers just Army Group A and its attack into the Caucasus. And that makes for a fun, fast, open, mobile scenario. And then we have a larger Case Blue Phase 2 scenario that includes operations in the Caucasus and towards Stalingrad, and really puts the German player in the position of having to decide how to split their forces. They don't really have enough to cover everything, but what can they do? And that summer-fall 1942 offensive before the Soviets can regain their superiority in the area and counterattack. And then we have an alternate Case Blue where the German 11th Army is added in to the force mix, which gives them a little bit more ability to power their way forward. And then there's a Kuban bridgehead scenario that takes place in 1943 with the German 17th Army defending their last part of the Kuban area before their pullout. And then we've got a couple of larger operational scenarios, one involving Army Group Center right after the Kursk battles in 1943, where the Soviet offensive, Kutuzov offensive, opens up to take Orel and drive to Smolensk. And we've got a Western Ukraine scenario that covers immediately starts with the attack on Kiev and then forward through the Western Ukraine in early 1944. So those are larger and yet operational battles that take place over about a 9-month period. So it gives you some new time areas of the war, 1943 to 45, and in some cases the Caucasus in 42. So it gives a good spread of scenarios over the length of the war and some new areas to fight in and new situations, as I said, in the Danube and the Road to Krylia scenarios. So we think it's a good mix of new scenarios that War in the East players will enjoy. We're planning a couple of AARs by some of the testers. We're hoping to see one against the AI and a 2-player match of a couple of the scenarios. So that'll give people an opportunity to see players in action playing the game. So that should be starting up in the next few weeks.
It's great that Joel is always manages to say interesting things, and it's almost weird that after all these years they managed to create interesting content for a game.
Still keep it new.
Yeah. It's just great. And I think Steel Inferno, one of the big takeaways from me is that it's structured in a way that there's small enough scenarios that you can really pick up, and it's going to be great for multiplayer games.
Good as an entry level kind of way for people to get into it.
To
multiplayer and tournaments could be really interesting with that. So I look forward to really good.
There's a lot of AARs being developed at the same time, so I look forward to seeing some of these. Next up, we've got Strategic Command. Now, Strategic Command again is a very long-running series, and I managed to interview Hubert for this video, and we almost spent more time talking about the heritage of this series than the future of it, because we're almost at such an interesting point now where American Civil War was released, and it was one of, if not the best selling of the series so far. And you can imagine, what is it like that your American Civil War version sells more copies than the World War II version.
And more copies in Germany. It was really weird, the number of copies in Germany we sold of an American Civil War game. That was really surprising.
So it's interesting that this series keeps being fresh and interesting, and it's, I guess you could call it an introductory war game, but in a way it's almost like even a grand strategy game.
Yeah, and the way that they tie the history in and the events and everything that happens in there, it's almost like a history lesson as well. It's a really good way to learn history.
So let's have a look at what Hubert has to say about what's coming next and what was the past of the series. and we'll be back to talk about Rule the Waves 3, which is one of the games we've just announced and is coming next year. It's something we're really proud of, and we're having Modern Naval Warfare just after that.
So for Strategic Command, it was just a project that I gave myself immediately after I graduated from university in computer science. So it was something that I wanted to experiment to see if I could make a game on my own, based on games that I enjoyed playing on the PC at the time. And I figured it was a 6-month project before I looked for a job, and let's just see how it goes. And so the 6-month project ended up turning into a 2-year project. It took way longer than I thought it was going to take. But I finished it, and I looked for a publisher. Battlefront was reached out to me. They agreed to publish it, and it did well. And it did well enough that I ended up continuing with the projects and making more games. And here I am 20 years later, still working on Strategic Command games. And now I've done 4 games with Matrix Games. They've all done really, really well. I'm very happy with how they've done, how they've been received. Players seem to really like the style of the games that we make, and that's pretty much the history of how I got from A to B on Strategic Command. Well, it's been great. It's been fantastic, actually. So the first time that happened for me was in 2008, where I met Bill Runacre as a modder. And he was working on a couple of mods. We started talking, and I, threw out the idea of let's see if we can try and turn one of these mods into an actual game. Would you be interested in working on it officially? So the first game that we did together was a Pacific Theater game, and it went really well. And so I've been working with Bill ever since then, and we've kind of essentially partnered up to work on every game after that. So including all the games we've done with Matrix Games and so on. And it's happened a few times over. So we've done, essentially what we started to do was we saw that was a formula that worked. And we looked at other modders that were doing really good work, and we just kind of did the same idea. Well, let's partner up, let's divide and conquer. You've obviously got good skills in making maps or making scenarios, and let's see if we can work together to polish them up and turn them into the professional level product that we want to release as an official game. So we've done that with a couple of other modders, including the latest one, which is the American Civil War game with Ryan O'Shea. So for him, his story was that he grew up watching his dad play the games, and he was, I think, 10 years old when he first got introduced to Strategic Command. And from there, he started designing his own mods, and then eventually got to the point where he actually approached us and said, hey, I have an idea for a game. Would you guys be interested in it? And long story short, that's the current American Civil War game that we've released with you guys. So the basic design principle that we have with the game was to keep it simple. 1 unit per hex, a kind of a simple style of combat, and simple rules, basic supply, those kinds of things. So it works really well for our initial design, which was the War in Europe design, and then we can modify that to design a global map, and we had to kind of work with the scale, make sure that it would work correctly with a larger map, or in terms of having more of the world in a single map. And then when it came to a game like the American Civil War, some of that would have been a challenge if we decided to keep everything exactly the way it was. So one of the issues with the American Civil War is that battles weren't fought completely on wide fronts like a World War I style, that kind of thing. So the design compromise there was to just have a much larger map. So we can kind of keep the same essence of what makes Strategic Command, but we had to kind of adapt to the reality of what would be needed to have an American Civil War game feel about right and feel like it would work properly. So on a strategic level, we felt it works fantastic. There are some criticisms, let's say, on the tactical level. It doesn't quite feel exactly right because there's no stacking. Battles were more concentrated on, the equivalent of a single hex. But, some of that is just give and take. So if you're happy enough to play a grand strategy game using the strategic command system with with a few compromises, but a much larger map that kind of brings you as close as possible to what you really feel that the war should feel like, that's what we accomplished, and that's how we did it. With every iteration, we try and improve the look and feel. So I think we like the basic design of the game. We wouldn't want to make it more complex. I mean, every iteration adds certain layers. The players always want a little bit more complexity, and so we're always guarded against that because we still want to make sure it's approachable and easy enough to play. But we also understand how, if we add X or Y to the game, it might make it feel a little more realistic, and so we try to always balance that out. But I don't know if we'd want to go more complex. We definitely want to keep that formula the same, but look and feel would be improvements that we would be happy to do. Maybe add more dynamic layers to it. Maybe improve on things like how the diplomacy works, how research works. But in terms of the overall feel, we still like the way it plays, and we wouldn't really want to change that too much. But definitely, if we could, let's say we use a 3D engine and we just kind of make it more powerful, so things like zoom would work better. A lot of times players would like more layers of zoom, and switching from a 2D engine to a 3D engine, but still keeping that sort of overtop, tabletop view, but a little bit enhanced, looking better. Those are certainly ways that we can improve the game going forward. So what Ryan has been working on is a series of campaigns that we're going to add essentially under the umbrella of the American Civil War. So some of them will be specific to the Civil War. Some of them are just additional bonus campaigns that fit the time period. So we have, he's going to do the Mexican-American War, so just before the American Civil War, Spanish-American War, and as well as the Franco-Prussian War campaign, which is something that I know a lot of players have been asking about, and we had something similar to this in the past, but this is a brand new campaign using the latest engine, and I think a lot of players will be very happy to see this.
Here it is, Hubert Cater. This one is interesting because Hubert came from, originally from his game the games were on Battlefront, and we ended up working with
I was just thinking
Steven.
that, yeah. So yeah, originally they were working together, and now we're doing the combat mission games and the strategic command games. And strategic command is one of my favourites, but you knew that already.
Yeah, yeah.
I spent countless hours playing the original World War II versions. So yeah, great series of games.
It's one of the things I wanted to add to what's been said. There's a new tournament being announced on the Matrix Games website. So if you go on matrixgames.com/tournaments, you'd see you can subscribe to the World at War tournament that we launched today, and we're going to add more in the coming weeks as well. Tournament system, just a little bit of a question with tournament system, although Enzo will kill us because we're wasting time. But this is something that I keep pushing a lot because I think it's a great way for players to be engaged with the games and such. When we launched PBM, it was like a long time ago, for Field of Glory.
Yep.
I didn't see this coming, but I really see this as being really a system that all players that playing all of our war games are starting to use a lot more as part of the routine of playing the games, and it's been something that we've almost done for fun.
Yeah, and when we originally we didn't realise how successful it would be. So we were making games that had real-time connection and playing a turn-based game whilst you're connected to your opponent. We were getting a few people playing. As soon as we went for the asynchronous multiplayer systems that we have now, we found it was orders of magnitude more that were playing and enjoying the games, and it all launched from there. But it's a very enjoyable way to play these kinds of games.
And we've got big projects for tournament systems and for PBM. So stick with us because we're gonna talk about a lot more about on this subject in the coming weeks and months. Right. So next up, we've got Rule the Waves 3. Now this video you're gonna see is voice and images of the game. If you're familiar with the series, you're gonna love what you're gonna see. I'd say this is what we were talking earlier, right? It's a game that's a true deep war game.
Yeah, it's a Wargamers game, definitely.
And if you almost, it's like if you don't know what you're looking at, you're almost puzzled, right? And but it comes out of passion and comes out of developers who couldn't really do anything else, right? It's their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things was when we signed the title, the command team found out about it, and they were universally very excited because this is the kind of game that appeals to that kind of audience. There's nobody else making these kind of things, so it's really good to have it as part of the.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have this game sitting alongside some others because it really shows the broad diversity of subjects and gameplay loops you can have for these types of products. And it's not only hex-based, turn-based. There's a lot of stuff that's.
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can skin this cat, definitely.
We were laughing earlier on because of this, this big exhibition called Wargames up in London at the Imperial War Museum, where a war game is not really a war game,
right? It's a bit annoying. They think a war game is a game that's about war, and
so there's a lot of first-person shooters and so on. But it's good to have a community that knows about that because it's sometimes it's pretty frustrating. So going back to the roots of what we do is great. So
I think Enzo's starting to cry.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at Rule the Waves 3 and back here for Modern Naval Warfare later on.
The most obvious one is the extension of the time period. The game now covers 1890 to 1970. So that is 80 years of ship design and naval warfare in one game. Those are a very dynamic 80 years. More probably changed in those 80 years than in any previous time in all of naval history. So there are a number of new technologies, radar, missiles, and not only technology, tactics have to change as well, how ships move and how they are organized into formations. That is both how they act in the ironclad age, where engagement ranges are much shorter, and then up into the air and missile age, where you need completely different formations. We have also added more nations in the game, the number of nations you can play and play against. There are also wars between AI nations. That was something requested by players. In previous iterations, all the wars were between the player and one or more of the AI nations. There are some more features that has been requested by players. You can organize your ships in divisions and they will deploy in battle in those divisions. There are officers that will command your ships, and you can move the officers around. Ship histories are recorded for every individual ship, when they are launched, when they are rebuilt or put in reserve, and when they participate in battles. Well, I have some things I would like to point out. For example, the playable nations. You can play as many different nations: Germany, Great Britain, Austria-Hungary, France, USA, Russia, even Spain, China, and I almost forgot Italy. Spain and China developing the game. I found out that you cannot really have a decent naval arms race without economic development. The size of battleships rose very quickly in the early 20th century, but ships also became much more expensive. So I had to build in an economic background and an expanding economy to make it realistic. There is also a prestige system that kind of drives the game. So as the player, you are the Grand Admiral and you have a prestige rating, and if your prestige goes too low, you might get sacked. And you gain prestige by winning battles or driving a generally hawkish agenda. You lose prestige by losing battles or if you appear weak or dovish, and you can also use prestige to prevent policies you don't like or to replace your officers.
All right, I've been said I have to rush because we're running out of time and we're late, so I'm going to behave now. I've got Ansel saying, doing all sorts of things in the background, so I'll go ahead. Right, so let's try and see if the Maslas bros are connected and see if everything works. Hey guys!
We can see you and we can hear
Hi
you.
guys.
Hi guys.
So,
Hi. Hello Marco, hello Ian.
Hello, hello. So the two, you're bringing the joy into this live stream. You're the joyful developers, and your setup is actually fantastic. You look super professional.
Thank you.
I couldn't once you know the last, I think it was the last live stream. You said to us, "There's one good-looking Maslas, and then there's the other one." You almost look like two professional Hollywood actors now.
Well, the second one is the clever one, the one with the long hair.
All right, how are you guys?
We're fine. We're fine. We are enjoying ourselves with the development of the project.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and we're happy to see you, Marco, especially because with Ian, due to our professional market obligations, we meet a lot.
Yeah, we see each other a lot more than we used to.
Yeah.
Ian got the message, I guess.
Right. So, can you tell us where you are with development? Well, how are things going? What's the current situation?
We are working full steam at the moment.
We're on nuclear age, not steam age.
Yes, but anyway, that's the idea. At the moment, we are implementing systems inside the submarine, so we're done with most of the wall stuff. We're done with most of the physics stuff. Some of those we're going to display tonight. And since we are working on our internal systems on the submarine.
David was very excited. He managed to get the submarine to dive last week.
Yes, he did. He asked a couple of questions. We had some forward and backward messages through email, but in the end, he got the basic hang of the thing.
It's, what are you? I mean, right now, what are we seeing right now? It's the you know, we've seen this in earlier live streams, but it's almost like it's a different, completely different thing because it's been upgraded in so many different ways. So tell us a bit more about that.
Well, what we see right now is the interior of. Let's get back. Yes, that's a Block 3 Virginia class submarine. Initially we are going to model the first 3 blocks of the Virginia class, which means apart from some artistic, let's say, differences inside, the most part has to do with sensors and interfaces. How we work is that we build a world. On top of that, we have our physics and our stuff, and then we build the ships. And inside the ships, we have to build each system individually. The reason is that they are ships and no two vessels are identical. The Virginia classes are already 20 years old, and the ones that were delivered 20 years before have not that many things in common as far as systems are concerned with the new ones. So, in essence, every time we build a submarine for the game, we have to build through, let's say in this case, for the Virginias, we had to build 3 different systems. Or let's say each subsystem of the submarine. 3 different sonar systems, 3 different radar systems, 2 different fire control systems, etc., etc.
One of the things I find really interesting is that in that 3D view that we were just looking at, those controls, they're not just visual decoration. This stuff is all real, isn't it? And all interactive.
Yes, in fact, you can click on almost most stuff that you can click on, you can actually do something with those. Apart from third grade stuff like some small valves and stuff, but the operational stuff are all working. And the thing is that exactly because all these are working, we had to keep all the rest of the UI as minimal. You don't have any HUD displays all over the place. You don't have any additional information. If you need to know where you are or where you're heading, you'll have to turn right or left and look at the screen, and you'll get the information.
It's what you're doing is in the process is you're focusing on the systems, and there's, you know, 3 different versions of the systems, but there's the outside world as well, right? You know, so you're working
Yes.
on a dynamic world with real life weather and traffic, and you know, everything outside of the submarine is also being created. How do you manage to make such a detailed game? And it's the 2 of you and some other external contributors, but you're not like 100 people working on the game. So how do you manage to build
we're
something
not.
so detailed?
As a matter of fact, there are working 100 people for the project.
Well,
The 2 of us and another 98.
yeah. No, we are a small team. Indeed, we, especially for the world part, believe it or not, that was the easy part. We get a lot of information. We implemented several GIS libraries, that's geographical data libraries. So we have data from Copernicus, from NASA, from UCLA, different sources about the weather, about the ocean, like ocean temperature at different layers, salinity, flows, max and mean wave heights, all these different data, and on top of that, we build our engine that the system gets all this data and creates all these worlds in, let's say, automated way. This, believe it or not, it's the easy part because the data are readily available. For the traffic, we use there's a system now that's 16 years old called AIS. Most merchant vessels are obliged to transmit above a certain displacement. They're obliged to transmit their locations every couple minutes and their type and the destination. We've got here in the office an AIS receiver. We get all this data, we retransmit them, we get a database, we make some statistical analysis on that, and we create the real-time traffic. So we mostly
It's the way they
use
say it.
automation.
That's just something that we
Yeah, we've got an
did this
AI
morning.
system in the office,
Yeah.
and I've got 2 actually. But I don't say it to anyone.
Yeah, and the rest are done by an AI.
Now, the systems modeling is way harder because most of it is classified. We had to dig into books, we had to dig into news feeds, into official presentations. We have watched hours and hours of videos.
But in the end, physics is physics, and
We had to make some educated guesses.
yeah,
And
the way sound works under the water, it's all about physics. So if you just connect the dots, you can find the answers that you are looking for.
Yeah, you make it sound very easy, but to be honest, I half of the time I don't know what you're talking about. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking. You're making it very clear, guys. The thing about being realistic and so collecting all this data and then putting it into the game and understand that, you know, this might be some sort of the easy part, you know, compared to the modeling and everything. But it's really what is interesting is how all this data you're putting into the sim actually interacts with the game itself. So it's you've got the data, but you make it relevant to the players. No matter what they're doing, it's something that makes it feel like a real world, but it's also being part of that world that's
feels
active.
Very real. I don't think there's anything that comes close to it in terms of realism. And whilst we're focusing on the commercial version, there's already professional side is already showing interest because they haven't seen anything that's close to this in level of realism either. So if you want to learn to control a submarine, this is going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah, in all due honest, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, after some of the meetings we did with Ian at some various professional organizations, we had the opportunity to check some of the, let's say, heavyweight professional simulator systems, and we discovered that let's say some of them were lacking the physics part, some of them were lacking the
You're being polite.
sensor part. Yes, so in essence what we got, we tried to create the full package, the one that you have both physics and sensors and weapons and deployment and the whole stuff.
So we started building the world from down up.
Yeah.
If you make a very good environment and put some real physics behind it, then the whole thing just connects and interacts. And even sometimes ourselves are very excited on the results of all this stuff combined together, bringing you what you see right now.
Yeah. Well, is there anything like that you want to go into detail about the game? And I call it a game, it's a simulation, but that you're particularly proud of and you want to go, and explain more? Is there something that you'd like to sort of analyze a bit more, or show, or tell us about?
Oh, there are tons and tons of stuff.
Usually we are very excited on our latest features
because that's what we have played with the last week.
Yes, I have to share.
The video that right now is playing, what you actually see is the normal operation of how you surface a submarine. For instance, that's one of our latest implementations. You get your submarine shallow, you raise what is called the snorkel mast, that's the mast we see right now, and then you start using low pressure blowers, filling the tanks with air and draining water outside. What this whole process does is that makes your submarine light, and then you surface. As a process, it takes several minutes depending on the water, the temperature, whatever. Of course, we have a time compression feature on the game, and in a few seconds we'll do that. But at the same time, the submarine has a fly-by-wire system, for instance. And while we were recording this particular video, we forgot to tell to the fly-by-wire system that, look, we want to surface. Instead of that, we tried to drain the tanks and left the fly-by-wire, believing that we want to get down to, I don't remember, 65 feet. So, although we'll start right now running the time faster, you'll see that the boat will never surface because the fly-by-wire is trying to get us down, while the physics are pushing it up. We ourselves made a mistake, and we never allowed the submarine to surface in this instance. Believe it or not, the fun part for us is when we put all the system together, because somebody is doing something, somebody else is doing something else, and then we get all the system together and we see that, okay, this works. It's actually what it should have done in reality. Because in essence, what we do, the fly-by-wire system is not directly connected to the physics of the engine. It works as a separate system as it does in real life.
So if a submarine team had done this wrong, this is what could have happened in real life if someone had tried to control the submarine incorrectly.
Trying to surface, but it won't, because the planes of the submarine is pushing it down.
All the hydrodynamic forces are pushing
Yes.
down
And
the
now we
ship,
found
the
the
boat.
issue. We set what we call the bubble at 0, which means that leave the planes up. And then we put the time up again, 8 times this time, and in a few seconds
I think people
of
think
the
that
game died.
the ships and submarines are simpler to control than they are. There's a lot of moving parts, and you have to get everything working together to make the submarine do what you want it to do. And one of the interesting things that you guys have done is there's an enormous amount to think about in just one submarine. So you've split those stations out to be able to control separately.
Yes, because that has a twofold idea. Obviously, it's an important factor in the pro market, but also it allows us to make multiplayer, multi-station games where you can have 2, 3, 5, 10 people working on different stations on the same submarine.
Plus the fact that the AI ships are working in the same manner as the manual ship, as the player ship.
Yeah.
So the AI will definitely give the same orders as you will have in the ship that it's not playable in the title.
You're talking about really cooperative multiplayer modes there, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you imagining that you'd be able to do that a cooperative mode, but then against another submarine? So you could have one submarine that you're controlling versus another submarine. Is that kind of thing likely to be possible?
Definitely.
Yes, that's one of the basic features. It's not something that we
Yeah.
plan for the future. It's one of the very basic stuff.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
on the release. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's the second video. We are deep. That's, let's say, the most the fastest way to get to the surface right now, instead of actually going shallow, deploying the snorkel mast and getting low pressure air. We lift these two very nice handles called chicken switches, which actually blow high pressure air in the ballast tanks, and the submarine will start to, that's the idea, start to raise very rapidly. It's like you have a basketball in depth and you leave it surface.
You can see, the lift force is
The lift force is
extremely high at that
extremely
moment.
high, and what it does, you have 7,000 tons of metal and weaponry, people jumping out of the water and then falling in again.
And it's actually one of the most common scenes that everybody has seen in movies.
October and stuff.
That they see a submarine getting to the surface with very fast speed, and here it is.
You made it
That,
happen
of
this
course,
time, so you won't be fired. There's a couple of more questions I want to ask before we say goodbyes. The one thing is, of course, this is a Virginia class submarine, and one of the most common questions out there is, what is the plan for expanding and what the future is? I know you've got to finish this one first, consider that, but what are your plans for the future of the game?
Believe it or not, some of our decisions for future DLCs. Oh, that's it. Sorry to interrupt. That's it. An explosion, which is one of our favorites. Yes.
Yeah, you got to see that. Yeah.
Most of the decisions have to do also with the professional market, but our plans usually say that we are going to release either one of these two submarines, either the British Astute class or one of the type 212, 214 diesel electric submarines from the German Navy. I think they both make for very compelling gameplay, both on the commercial side and the professional side, of course. And that's our additional plan for DLCs. In the future, we want to expand more, of course, even on surface vessels, if everything goes well.
Yes.
Just to make a notice on this video, this particular one, we had a torpedo hitting the ship, and what you see is that how water enters the various areas of the vessel and fills them up to the point that the ship turns around and eventually sinks. The damage modeling system we have right now, it's hit by a torpedo will open a hole, and this hole will get water in, and as
The time progresses.
yes, and compartments fill, the ship might survive or might sink, like this case, depending on where it's hit and if it's in battle stations, if it is a military vessel. And people should know that also ships don't sink instantly; they take some time for that. That's why we added time compression.
That makes sense. And it's cool because it's some we like to see some action as well. So that's thanks for showing us the action part as well. And last question I've got is about VR and you know how we're gonna see VR implemented in the game.
VR is the gameplay. The idea of the gameplay for the game is twofold. One is you operate the stations. The other is that you take the part of the captain. The captain gives orders, and the people on stations execute these orders. So there's always somebody that is in control. The idea for VR is that you take the place of the captain. He moves around, or she, right? This age, this person moves around the control room and look at the station and give the command. Look, I want that. I want this target, this contact to be assigned to torpedo 1, and do this, then that, or get back to that depth or that speed, and so on and so forth. That's the idea for the VR. It's that you get in the place of the captain. And then you can have people without VR playing on their computer or AI and doing the station stuff.
Will VR be available at release, or is it going to be happening later?
We were hoping for the initial release. It depends on how we progress on other stuff. Our main idea is that we want to give whatever we are going to release initially. We want it to be very well crafted. We don't like leaving the dents, and if some systems are not to be included, are not going to be included for good reason. If it's VR is not in at the first release, it will be on
Definitely on
the first updates for sure.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much. It's always a.
Marco,
do you want to say something else?
Yes. One last thing. The team is not very big, although we have people from all over the world. We have people from the US, France, one Dutch member, French, British. But I want to thank also the community, because we have a very, very good community.
Exactly. Yeah.
And most of them are either professionals or semi-professionals or have something to do with that. And they're a big drive behind the details we add to the game.
Yes.
Most of the stuff we did add is either because of their recommendations or because of their assistance. So I had to say thank you to all these guys that help us all this time.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I keep saying that with our wargaming community in general. They are a great community. They tend to, most of our competitors or peers in the market, they have to face very sometimes fierce, sometimes
hostile
communities, and wargaming market has a great community. So it's absolutely on spot on that you mentioned that, because it's definitely one bit
very civilized.
Yes.
And
educated, professional. We're very happy about this part of our work.
A big thank you.
So that's you guys out there. So thank you guys for.
Yes, no, definitely. Do we have time for any questions from the community?
Is there any question? Okay, let me check. Okay, so release timeline. Oh, that's an odd one. Yanis, tell us something about the release. Dimitri's not going to answer that one.
No.
Well,
I never do.
we were supposed to enter beta late this year. I think we postponed that for a quarter or something. We hope to have entered beta early quarter, late Q1, early Q2 of next year. See how this goes and release immediately after that.
Okay.
I guess that it's not going to be a very short beta. There are very way many systems that needs to be checked. Again, we hope the community will do better work than we by ourselves. So hopefully we'll have it by late Q2 next year. That's our hopes.
Yeah, the one question which is interesting because reminds me of some of my history as well. There's one question saying, is this the equivalent of one person commanding or a shipboat, or will it be more like Cold Waters, for instance, where you're commanding an officer? You're a commanding officer, and what are the options there in terms of the command of the submarine? Is it how is the structure? If you're playing single player, do you control all the stations? Can you delegate? Can you just ask the AI to do some of the stuff for you?
You can delegate, you can assign AI on each station, and you can just be the captain. So you give commands, you look around the control room and give command, do that, do this, and delegate either to AI or some other multiplayer or network player. And either that, or you can actually take charge of one or more stations, as many as you wish, depending, of course, on the scenario. And if there are many things to do, it might get at some point a little hectic. So probably, I guess, most people will delegate some parts.
Well, my idea is that in the future, since my guess is that many scenarios are going to be available later and from the community too. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to see some campaigns that they are management oriented. You're going to be the captain. You won't have to walk on stations so much, and some others are going to be sonar oriented and maybe made by sonar men, which there are many in the community. So we're going to see many different types of campaigns, and people are going to get in the position to play in many different stations in many different ways. M&W.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about the sim is that there's so many different parts to it. I mean, we could open an hour-long discussion about sound and how you're coping with sound in the game and so on. So there's all sorts of different things you could talk about. One last question for the community. I think it's one of the earlier trailers we had, like air units. Like I think it was a drone. There was a helicopter prosecuting the sub with a dipping sonar. Can you tell us a bit more about how these elements are going to interact within the sim?
Well, you cannot waver anti-submarine warfare aircraft and helicopters, because apart from another submarine, your biggest enemy as a submarine captain is always a helicopter or an anti-submarine warfare aircraft. So they are going to be there, and they are going to be very, very aggressive against you.
Yeah, usually the anti-submarine warfare works in a combined way. So you're gonna see this combination of forces trying to hunt you down.
Yeah, aircraft launching sonar buoys and frigates getting near you, along with their helicopters moving around.
Especially with the introduction of multi-purpose frigates.
Yes.
They have some of them are huge. They have 2 helicopters.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see this stuff.
Yeah, playing around.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, guys, we look forward to opening the beta and seeing more players getting their hands on the game. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys.
Do more
Great
about
to see
this in the near future. So thanks a lot.
Bye.
That's exciting.
It is. It's every time you see it, you see something new. It's pretty detailed.
Yeah, and it could go on forever because this how complex this is, but you can add bits to the world in a very
like Command. Also because it's set in a modern setting, it just carries on going forever.
Goes on. Yeah, the tech goes on.
So yeah.
It's very interesting. Well, guys, as Yannis was saying, plan is to go into beta in Q1 next year. So we're going to start recruiting very soon. So stay tuned for more information about that. Ian, we're going to sort of do a little bit of conversation about Combat Mission because I've seen in the chat that there has been quite a lot of questions about where Combat Mission is going and so on, and rightly so. People asking, you told us about a schedule, it never happened, and so we're going to face that elephant in the room.
We did, and the schedule issues mostly come down to underestimating how complicated tournaments would be. The tournament system itself is relatively simple to integrate, but because of some of the way that Combat Mission's code is structured, it's made it particularly tricky for the team to integrate, and it's taken far more time than we ever imagined it would. And we've run test tournaments now for, I think we've run at least 2 or 3 test tournaments.
Cold War,
Yeah, and we've ironed out most of the issues, and I think we're pretty much done. And we were trying to get the tournament system completely rounded off inside Cold War before we started going through, because there's a lot of shared code. Once that's done, we can then put it into the next ones. When I say we, Battlefront, obviously, it's the guys there have been doing all the hard work on this. And it's, like I say, it's just taken much longer than we've hoped, and that has had a knock-on effect on all of the plans. We didn't want to release the World War II games, so go into Normandy without the feature when it's being developed here, and then come back and retrofit it later. We want, when Normandy comes out, we want it to have play by email, tournament mode, everything fully finished and ready to go. And we've kept thinking that we were nearly there, and that's lulled us into the idea that it's just another week and we'll be there, another week and we'll be there, and that time has just disappeared. And so it's on us. We've just underestimated the amount of time it would take to get the
real life
tournament
event
in.
getting in the way as well, because you've got the team is not grown, just maybe slightly grown over the last year, and real life event means real life events plus pro work added to the team.
They have
as well.
been stretched thin. They are at the moment, they're trying to support many different games. Every time they have a new release come out, they still have all the other releases to support, and so at the moment they are stretched too thin, and they understand it, and we're working with them to how can we build the team around you that the game deserves to really take it forward and maximize its potential.
And also the fact that the Battlefront guys, Steve and Charles and the team are aware that Combat Mission as it is it's a game of the past and the present, but there has to be a future. So they're also working on what comes next, and so
yes,
it's like
it's a kind of a worst case situation right now. They're supporting Combat Mission 2 titles. They're trying to get tournament mode in. They're also doing a little bit of work on the pro side, but not really. We've put a stop to that because it was causing too much issues on the commercial side. And like you say, they're working on what comes next. And it's not a big team. And like I say, we're talking to them, and we're trying to work out how can we kind of better support you, and how can we help to grow the team and really make the most of what they've got here, because they have an incredible starting point and so much potential, and
anyway,
great opportunity.
The plan is still to finish PBM and tournament system.
Yes.
Then release Combat Mission Normandy and all of it.
And then I forget now, because there's actually quite a few
there's
titles
quite a few
in the
World War
release.
II games. And then make sure that we then move to phase the next phase of the project as well. So
Yeah.
this is still the plan.
That absolutely
it's
is
just
the plan.
taking more time than we expected.
Yes.
And again,
Which you've never heard in game development before, I'm sure.
And but we're sure that we're going to keep you up to date, and hopefully with a bit more realism in the future, and make sure that we don't.
Well, yeah,
we don't promise
possibly,
anything
but we really think we're nearly there now.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah,
we're gonna be more practical in the future and make sure that we don't give you dates if we're not sure about them. It's also this thing that we always want to be open about what's happening, and it's like, and we talk to each other and say, well, we're nearly there. Should we say to the community? Well, why not? Yeah, let's say to the community, we're nearly there, and then we're not really nearly there.
It's really tricky, because if you leave it too late, and then things went to plan, you end up telling people about it just before it comes out, and then people say, why weren't you talking about this? And then, you can never win.
But I guess Steve is in the chat, so if you've got questions about Combat Mission, and you ask the questions, and Steve or John should be in the chat. The future of Combat Mission is, I think that what we have in mind for Combat Mission is really a bit what Command is doing. Really, it's being an active part of the wargaming community as a commercial product, and being an active part of the wargaming community as a professional product.
Very much so. There's a lot of interest. There's an organisation called Fight Club, which started in the UK, and they're a grassroots organisation that wants to get training using simulations and war games embedded in the military and the education and around them. So kind of throughout their career, take them through this, because they've got a lot of anecdotal evidence at the moment that shows that this training is really, really valuable. And one of the main titles that they're focused on is Combat Mission. They're also using Flashpoint Campaigns and Command, but Combat Mission is the one that is really at the heart of what they're trying to do at the moment. And they have, big plans and very interesting stuff going on there, and they're actually presenting it, some of the stuff they're doing next week at a conference in Paris. We've got one of the guys going across from the Command team to support them, to help show Command off, and they're going to be doing Combat Mission themselves.
Right, so next up we've got a video about Nuclear War Simulator. This is a game that went a bit under the radar for a while, again, because of obvious reasons, but we're now close enough to completion of the game, that at least the commercial part of the game, that we are able to tell you a bit more about it. We've got a video with Ivan Stepanov, who's the main developer on the game, on the project. It's not really a game, it's a project. It's a simulation, and
simulation
it's a
sandbox.
And it's a very interesting piece of software that got featured in many studies as well. So I'm pretty proud of what Ivan has done. I think it's interesting to see what can be done with simulations these days. So take a look and realize for yourself.
Okay, so hello everyone. So the motivation to make the Nuclear War Simulator was mainly because such tool didn't exist yet, and I was interested in the topics of nuclear weapons since I was a child, because I grew up in Semipalatinsk, which is very close to the nuclear weapons test site in Kazakhstan, where the Soviet Union tested most of their nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons were a big part of the culture of the city. And growing up, I was playing a lot of games, but there was really nothing that depicted a nuclear conflict realistically. So at some point, I decided to do it myself. So this is something that needs to be clear to the user, that it's not a game, because there is no goal predefined. Like there is no goal like in DEF CON to kill as many people as possible, but instead you create the goals yourself and you are free to experiment. You can build scenarios however you like, and the simulation is very detailed, so the physics of nuclear weapons effects is realistic. You have prompt radiation, you have thermal radiation, you have overpressure, fallout, a very detailed model for the fallout. So you can experiment and you can learn about these things, but there is no predefined goal. Different aspects of the simulation. One side is the military side of it. So I'm trying to reproduce the dynamics of a nuclear conflict. So I'm trying to simulate the delivery systems more or less accurately. So you have ballistic missiles, which are actually flying on ballistic trajectories, and the impact time is realistic. Then you have aircraft that can carry gravity bombs or cruise missiles or even ballistic missiles, like the Russian Kinjal system. And you have submarines and ships, all kinds of systems that you would see in the world today. So this part represents the military side. And on the other hand, we have the humanitarian side, and there we have a high resolution population density map with a resolution of 1 kilometer or below. And on this population density map, we calculate the effects of nuclear weapons like overpressure, thermal radiation, fallout. And we use the models from Cold War to do this as realistic as possible. And on one hand, you have the effects on this population density grid. So you calculate how many peoples would die in such a conflict. And on the other hand, the effects are simulated on individual objects. For example, you can place yourself in the simulation, you can travel on the map, you can use OpenStreetMap style map, and you can travel on the map, you can take shelter in a building which gives you protection factor from radiation. It also simulates effect on humanitarian infrastructure, for example, hospitals, power plants, airports. All these key objects of civilian infrastructure can be affected, and in the end you can calculate what would be the effect on the population and civilian infrastructure after a conflict. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the simulation as easy to use as possible. So it is very open, so you can create weapon systems your own, you can create any kind of warhead or missile, but there is also a database of predefined weapons from the real world that you see today. For example, the Minuteman missiles with their approximate yield, with their range, and Russian missiles with multiple warheads, and also delivery systems like aircraft, submarines. So this is all available in the simulation, so you can just take it and place it on the map to use it in your scenarios. The simulation is not only meant to be used by the general public, but also can be used in a professional setting, for example, by academia. So right now there is one project at Princeton University called Simulating Nuclear War, where the nuclear war simulator is used to calculate the casualties in a scenario where United States is using different arsenals to analyze different arsenal compositions and its effect on the policy. For example, what would happen if you remove the silo-based ICBMs?
What Ivan's doing is pretty fascinating, is it?
It is. It's really interesting, and it's a lot less hypothetical than it used to be, which is quite scary.
Yeah. Right. So just to add a little bit of a light touch to this, we have got a video about Shadow Empire now. Shadow Empire released last year, and it was almost like a surprise hit in a way. You know, right? We were confident about what the game was, but
we were worried the market wouldn't take the graphical style to some extent.
But the complexity, the scale, and everything, it just captured people's imagination, and it was great. And And so we've got a bit about Vic, VR Designs, Victor Reichersch, talk about the future of Shadow Empire, because Shadow Empire is not over, and some unannounced stuff. And we're then going back to talk about Flashpoint Campaigns with OTS. So let's take a look.
Well, it has been over 2 years since Shadow Empire has been released. I'm very happy with where it is right now. I've been doing a lot of patching over the last 2 years, and this has repaired for sure many bugs, but it has also added many features. It also has improved the quality of life experience for the user interface a bit. And at the moment I'm still working on patch number 11, which should come out relatively soon. At the moment it's still an open beta. That's something that might be of interest to Shadow Empire players. Before Shadow Empire is upgraded to a new version, we already tested in open beta, and if you have either the Matrix or the Steam version, you can join the open beta before official patch takes place. That's sort of where Shadow Empire is right now. There's some relatively big news, actually. I'm going to, or we, if I include my publisher, we are going to release the first VR Designs DLC. So I'm quite curious how that's going to go. I think we have an interesting subject for this DLC. It's going to be oceans for Shadow Empire. And if you like, I can tell a bit more about this Oceans DLC, which we are very probably going to call Oceania. What always annoyed me with Shadow Empire was that there's a lot of people who liked it, and I like them too. Desert planets, planets with scarce water. But there's something, for me, there's something magical about planets, procedurally generated planets with actual continents. There's something about coastlines, islands, the shape of a world with more water that's just intrinsically pleasing. And basically I chose the oceans feature, basically mostly for the feel. It really changes the feel of the game to start on a small continent, to have to explore outwards over the seas, to find new islands. It makes the game feel quite different to me, and in a good way. The thing is, I implemented these oceans with a focus on the actual oceans. So it is more of an oceans DLC than actually a naval DLC. I've introduced the concept of maritime trade houses. These are very much like the trade houses you might already know that do trade between the different zones in your empire and in your neighbors' empires. These trade houses are controlled by the AI, and so are the maritime trade houses. The difference is, of course, the maritime trade houses, they're based out on the open seas. Once the game starts, either they will approach you at some point or you will approach them, and you will be able to open a line of communications with them and start discussing maybe acquiring their services. This will be done in the manner of signing contracts. Examples of contracts are a transport contract, an explorer contract, a port building contract. And especially the transport contract ties into the existing logistical systems. This DLC will include a number of new planet classes. First of all, the Gaia class planets. These are supposed to be very similar to yours. So maybe 40 to 70% of water, a number of big continents. And then there's also 3 others. There's the Fontes class, which is basically wetter. Imagine a planet with even more rain, more rainforests, swamps. It's water paradise. Then there's the Proteus class, which is drier than the Earth, but still has a lot of landmass. And the Thalassa class, which basically has fractured tectonic plates and or very many islands. These planets look more like the Pacific Ocean, for example. Very few large land masses and a lot of small islands. Of course, the already present random planet generator will now be opened up to include any percentage of sea surface on the planet being generated. So that's about everything I want to share at this moment about the upcoming Oceania patch. However, in the weeks and months to come, we will keep updating you on what's about to be released very soon.
All right, so we're approaching the grand finale, and we're going to connect with Canada now after doing twice Greece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Greece is big on Wargames.
Greece is big on Wargames. We're going to connect in Canada with Rob Crandall of On Target Simulations. Aha. Hello, Rob.
I'm not hearing anything.
I think your headphones are not coming through. Your headphones, yes. Hopefully this is going to work. Not working yet, but this is.
We got so far without a problem, so.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Just
there. Okay.
Here we go. Yes. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to see you both today.
Yeah,
you too, Rob.
It's great. Well, first of all, since last time we connected to your office, you get it tied up. Your background is much tidier than it was.
I just spent the last 20 minutes decluttering, yes. So I don't want everybody to know how a real development office looks.
Rob, how are things approaching release, right?
Yes, Southern Storm is just about ready to go out the door, so I'm just sitting here with my feet up on the desk, twiddling my thumbs because there's nothing to do. Maybe somebody will report a bug, but who knows? Yes, I've been busy.
So
the
Rob,
team has been very busy.
Rob, before we get into more details, just going back to, for anyone who is not familiar with Flashpoint Campaigns and specifically Southern Storm, well, it's one of the most anticipated war games, I would say, ever. Considering the amount of feedback we're getting from the fans, set during Cold War and nations, U.S. and Soviet Union, and more. So, can you tell us, more about who is involved and what are the factions and the nations and the joint and what forces you control? All the basics.
The basics, sure. So this is a war game set in a hypothetical conflict between NATO and Warsaw Pact in 1989. It's in West Germany, as it then was. The games run about 4 to 14 hours in time. The maps are about 15 by 20 kilometers in size, although some are bigger. You're commanding a reinforced battalion up to a reinforced regiment or brigade with counters, the ones you see on the map, typically platoons or, for the Warsaw Pact, companies. And you maneuver around. The hexes are 500-meter hexes. And so it's a tactical game of up-close, highly lethal modern combat. It's as high intensity as it gets. That's kind of the overview. The particular forces for Southern Storm, which we're looking at here, have 8 nations. They're the 4 from the old game. So the US, the Soviet Union, West Germany, and United Kingdom. And because we're in Bavaria now and in related areas, we add in Poland, Czechoslovakia, France, and Canada, because they were involved down there. So we have 8 nations. Unlike the last game, which came out 9 years ago, almost exactly 9 years ago, you could only have 1 nation per side. Now you can have multiple nations per side. And you as a commander show in it, and you have a nationality. Take it from there.
Yeah.
The game.
How about the scenarios and campaigns, and you know, what are the units that we'll see in the game?
Typically platoons and companies, sometimes sections or individual flights of aircraft. If you've seen the previous game, it's quite similar in scope. Everything about it has been deepened and improved, but the scope is pretty much the same. A few things that are a little different this time around that are significant, though, is that we got away from magic engineers. It used to be, if you had to cross a river, and there are a lot of rivers on these maps, you'd drive a combat unit up to the riverbank and you'd snap your fingers, and half an hour later there'd be a bridge. We had, the staff would provide a bridging element and get you across. That was a little unrealistic, because a lot of that fighting really would center on river crossings and no water crossings. And so we have dedicated on-map bridging engineers now. And big hint, they're worth their weight in gold. If you have 4 rivers to cross and you lose one of your engineers, it's like you only have 3 now, you're in a world of trouble. Apart from these dedicated engineers, we have what we call off-map locations, because a lot of the artillery is quite long-ranged on both sides, and you can't really place them on a 15-kilometer by 20-kilometer map realistically. So we say now, okay, we will put them in an off-map location. It's so many kilometers east and south, say, or north and west of where the center of the map is, and it then works out all the ranges. You can still do counter battery fire and things like that, but you don't actually have to have them on the map to participate in the game.
The game is structured in campaigns and battles, right? And what the structure of, you know, how these battles are linked to each other, and there's, you know, there's large battles, there's smaller you know, skirmishes. How are the missions linked to each other, and how is time managed, you know, to link these campaigns and battles?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The game will ship with 22 standalone scenarios and 3 campaign games. And the campaign games are linked scenarios. And so you play out the game, and it'd be 4 to 8 hours, and you can end it up to a little early if you like. And that can matter because the way the games are scheduled in a campaign, you have travel time to the next map, which is a standard 4 hours. And then any extra time you have before that next scenario starts is used for rest and recovery. And so your units will fill in fallen out vehicles and platforms, possibly absorb some new replacements, and just recover a little rest and morale and a lot of ammo. And then the game starts. And you've moved your core force from the first game to the second game. And then you move them from the second to the third and the third to the fourth, as you might expect. But they get worn down. Like I said, this is a very lethal combat area. And you really need to spend a lot of time when you're playing campaign games not burning out your force. Replacements are few and far between, and you have a long time, like I'm 3 or 4 days of game time to make those things last. And creates all kinds of delicious command dilemmas, because you really have to think, you know, do I really push and possibly have a Pyrrhic victory, or do I just acquiesce and say, yeah, I didn't clean up in this scenario, but I kept my force in being, and I've got 8 hours before the next one, and that's enough time for me to get up the strength and get back in the groove again. So there's a real tension, and if you might end, for example, a campaign scenario a couple hours early, just so you can get that extra recovery time. And you might not have seized every victory point location or really chased down every last enemy unit, but your forces are that much better prepared for the next contest they're about to enter.
Well, one thing that we were chatting with the team, and that is in continuous evolution is the combat system. You know, compared to the earlier Flashpoint Campaigns games, Flashpoint games, and since Flashpoint Germany, and now what we have now. Almost to the point where Flashpoint Campaigns is almost like the subtitle now, because it's morphed into something completely different in a way, right? How did the combat system change over time, and what you think you want to point out as being the biggest changes if you've applied to the combat system?
We've made a host of changes, and almost everything that worked, we've taken apart and made it work better, deepening the modeling. And we've had new team members since the Red Storm days that have really gone to town and helped. So the spotting model used to be kind of black and white. It was you're spotted or you're not. And we thought thermal imaging gear was the greatest thing ever, and that was the only modifier really. Well, now we have a very detailed spotting model, and we have detection ranges and classification ranges and identification ranges, and we have different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that we're surveilling on, and we're comparing different contacts and how good they are, and really making a careful determination. The direct fire model had a lot of overkill in it, so that if you had 5 of your tanks shooting at 5 of theirs, all 5 of yours might shoot at the first tank they see and all kill the same one, in essence. And that happens in real life, but there's a lot of control measures to prevent it, and so we did something similar to distribute fire better. And our indirect fire was completely rewritten. So you'll see, instead of just a barrage hit a hex, you'll see individual volleys hex every couple of minutes. And you now get to select the munition types in far more detail. We have all kinds of different artillery and main tank gun munition types. And for the artillery ones, you can say, I want this particular smoke, and then I want this particular HE, and then mix in some ICM, something like that, a little later on, and really fine tune it and have far more detail. That said, one of our goals was to keep it flowing the way the old game did, and we didn't want to slow it down or bog it down. And so you'll see it really proceed pretty much the same or in a very similar way to the Red Storm, just with more plausible looking results, shall we say, higher fidelity results. And
that's a really
for those
good
who
point,
found
Rob, that you can add this detail and you can add this complexity, but if you're not improving the user interface and the feedback and keeping the whole flow right, you might add all this content and features and actually make the game a less enjoyable experience. So it's really important to focus on those things. And sometimes people don't realize how much work goes into that side of it rather than just, oh, look, we've got this cool new feature.
That is so true, Ian, because at the end of the day, we're trying to tell a story, and we can get in our own way by putting in too much. And in fact, with this version, I put in a set of controls that let you turn off a lot of the combat stuff. It happens, but it doesn't show it to you. And that's to help people who just want a quicker, more abstract experience and just get to the end. I'll review it later and see where the losses were and who did what. Or other people who are doing something small, say, and really want to get all the detail, and they want it to go slowly enough that they can see what's happening and which of the weapons that seem to be doing the damage. So you can do that too. And before you couldn't customize it, now you can customize it extensively. Get the experience you want.
Well, talk about this improvements and making the game experience a better one. What do you think is the future of the Flashpoint series? I mean, it took you 9 years to get to the point where you're releasing Southern Storm. What do you think is the future of the series now?
Oh, we've done so much work improving the game engine. We really want to start doing a whole lot more content now. So staying in the Cold War, this is the southern end of the entire central front of NATO. Clearly we'll do a full-to-gap version and then a Northern Plains version. With the Northern Plains, we'll have Poland and Britain and Holland, Denmark in as well. So we'll have 12 nations, 3 games. There'll be DLCs, but it's all one engine. We'd really like to go further north into Norway, and we're open to possibilities elsewhere as well for the Cold War engine. Beyond that, we're really interested in the modern era for understandable reasons, and particularly things like drones. Drones changed everything, have changed everything, and so we really want to get modern equipment, modern force structures, modern situations, and set all that up. Oh, here's something new. When you're doing scenarios, you can change the electronic warfare levels per side per hour now. In the old game, it was just set once and that's it. So now you can coordinate your forces with the actual EW settings and air superiority that higher HQs have set up for you. And something else we're looking at right here on these screens is a whole new part of the scenario editor where you can create what we call battle plans. And battle plans in some games would be scripts telling the units what to do, but in this case, no, it's more a way to express the commander's intent. If you imagine a group of officers before the battle starts having an orders group and they're huddled around the map and the executive officer is sketching things out, it would look a bit like this. This is where they're agreeing, okay, you're going this way, we're going that way. You're moving groups of units, not individual units. And you're expressing your intent as a commander, but we all know what happens to plans when they meet the enemy, and similarly these will suffer a similar fate. But it gets you going. These plans are made and they're saved independently of the scenarios. So that means if you've got, say, a brief moment in time and you come up with a really good new Warsaw Pact battle plan, you can share it with your friends. You can send it out, you can publish it, you can do all kinds of stuff and create like mini content. Not a full-blown scenario, but the smarts in them are severable and can be sent out. So we're really excited to see what people do with that.
It's interesting because
these are other shots
we were talking about with Hubert about how a game modder became a contributor to the series with DLCs and such. Do you see that happening as well with Flashpoint campaigns, where you actually ask for a contribution to the community, creating content and then sort of validating it and making it available to the public?
Oh yes, that's the most fun part. Everybody on the team that made this started in the Matrix forums, and there were modders and contributors, and it said, "Yeah, I want to be part of it," and the rest is history. And very much, you might recall with Red Storm, the final edition we call the Players Edition, just because it incorporated so many new ideas and features that were suggested in the forums. And it helps us also that the time period covered is one where people are still very much alive. If we were doing Napoleonics, not so much, but Cold War, we got a lot of people telling us, yeah, no, it went this way instead, and you might want to do it that way too. And
that's cool.
We've benefited enormously from that.
We're just weeks away, right? So it's the week before Thanksgiving releasing.
Yep.
So that means a Gold Master, is it next week or week after?
Don't be nervous.
Well, I have November 7th as my drop dead date.
Okay.
And that gives you, everybody at your end, a bit of time to actually get the bits together and polish it up. But we're going to be working on this for years and years yet to come, clearly. And with Red Storm, we did something like 14 follow-up releases. And I expect this will be very similar too.
Oh, yeah. Don't go on holiday after release.
Yeah, that's when the work really starts.
I have such a good team, it doesn't matter. I could get hit by a bus and everything would be just fine.
All right. Well, Rob, thank you very much for joining us. I'm excited. I have to say that Flashpoint Campaigns released, I think it was around the same time as Command, right? You know, we were not...
A month before.
Yeah, a month
October
before.
2013.
And these two games, you know, are like almost... They went off into completely different directions, but in the end, they're sort of uniting under the umbrella of the pro work, under the umbrella of, you know, evolution in, you know, how the franchise went.
It's more true than you realize, I think, because on the pro side, the STL have actually linked Flashpoint Campaigns and Command together. So you can play in Command and see the Flashpoint Campaign battlefield inside Command. They've created overlays and ways of integrating the two games together. So it is really interesting what's going on.
So it's exciting, really exciting to see that these two games are, you know, after 9 years, are still a big thing, a big part of the wargaming community. So, you know, thanks for sharing all this with us.
Okay. Yes, Command and Demetrius, I've met Demetrius several times now, and we got along like a house on fire. Yeah, Command pulled ahead. They got more updates out than we did, but we're going to pick up our socks now. We're going to get the cadence going a little faster.
I think you know, it's a different type of game. Of course, Command is modern, and you know, starting as Cold War, you've got to sort of, you've got more room for the future, right? You know, there's a lot of content that can come. You know, there's nuclear weapons, there's chemical weapons, there's drones. There's so much to look forward to, and I'm really looking forward to it.
We're more excited than we've ever been, and I've been working on this for like 20 years now, if you go right back to the very beginning.
Yeah, that's great, Rob. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you for live stream. We have actually started live streaming Flashpoint Campaigns Southern Storm this week, so get on the Twitch schedule. We'll be happy to share the dates for the next live streams. I think someone from the team actually streamed or is going to stream Flashpoint Campaigns in the coming days. So it's all real now. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Right, so this was the second to last one, and I have to say that, you know, we went from Command and finished with Flashpoint Campaigns, and in the middle we've got such a diverse set of war games.
There's some really very different things in there, different periods, different hexes, real time, turn-based, and everything there.
And everything is a war game, and I have to reinforce this, because this last game we're gonna talk about, we've got a video for, is maybe sort of the very beginning of the spectrum of a light war game. You know, Valor Victory is, okay, where do you want to start from if you don't know war games? You know, this is kind of...
Yeah, it's a really good entry-level war game, yeah.
And then you can start playing all these more complex products. But I think that this shows how this idea of really focusing the home Wargamers brand and Matrix Games on war games and pushing harder into, you know, marketing and communicating these games as a sort of subset or as a different thing for us is becoming paramount, because there's so much variety in there.
Yeah, and it gives you a chance to dig into that in more depth, which you just wouldn't get when you're trying to look at both types of games at the same time.
So let's take a look at the Valor Victory video, and then we'll come back for a last word. When we started working on Valor Victory, we were already having a good partnership with Global Wargames on other war games. Valor Victory is exactly that. It's this, you know, putting together the core elements of a war game, but in a familiar setting of the World War II and the board game approach.
January 2018, I just finished working on my 5th war game, and I was looking to a squad leader type game. So I looked around for a board game that I could convert and came across Barry Doyle's Valor Victory, and I thought it would take me 18 months to work on the game. I got to January 2020, realized I'd need some help to finish the game. and I asked Bruce, who I had previously worked on a war game with, to see if he'd join me in working on Valor Victory, and he was glad to jump in and help. With Bruce's help, it took us another 18 months to finish Valor Victory and launch it. Immediately after that, we started to look to work on our first DLC. Designing scenarios with orders of battles and playtesting them takes a lot of time, and we still had some development work to do. So I looked around for someone that could help with this, and I came across Jim Oriscani, who was doing a lot of Valor and Victory historical scenarios for his YouTube and podcasts. And he said yes he would, and he suggested we do Stalingrad. So while Bruce and I were doing some additional feature work on Valor and Victory, Jim created and play tested 12 scenarios for us. He created the maps, the order of battles based on historical events. Almost immediately after finishing the Stalingrad DLC, we wanted to start work on our second DLC. I was really keen to a conversion of maybe an ASL type module, and I reached out to Xavier from Le Frontier and asked him if I could do Shield of Chrome. Bruce and I worked on that, and we're out to launch Shield of Chrome in July 2022 with more new features for Valor and Victory. We didn't rest after that. We wanted to do one more DLC before the end of the year. I've been talking to Barry Doyle in the background whilst we're working on Stalingrad and Shield of Chrome, and he was working on an Arnhem module. He'd already designed some scenarios and a map for Arnhem, just focused on the battles around Arnhem Bridge. So working with Barry and also doing a couple of my own scenarios, we converted his scenarios and the Arnhem Bridge map, and now have our third DLC.
This tells the story of the battle for that bridge. The first 5 are very much kind of the Allied forces breaking in and the Germans trying to hold them off. And what my particular favourite mission, the very final one, which is aptly named The Bridge Too Far, is 25 turns, which is 3 or 4 times longer than any other game that we've had in Valor and Victory. And it is very much the Allies trying to hold out north of the bridge as the Germans are sort of trying to punch through across the bridge and come from the sides as well. So there's reinforcements of the Axis kind of coming over time.
The DLC has 6 scenarios in it. It's a smaller one than previous. The climax of the DLC is really the 25 turn scenario, A Bridge Too Far, where your British paratroopers led by Lieutenant Colonel John Frost are gradually more and more outnumbered by the approaching Germans camp groups as they reach the battle, and it's really a case of can you survive the 25 turns. It's really hard. I haven't done it yet.
Valor and Victory is an opportunity for anyone who is interested in war games but is a bit scared about the size of war games and the complexity, and helps anyone who's interested in war games to start from somewhere that's easy, understandable, approachable, but deep and also familiar, like you've got in the World War II setting. Right, so this brings it to an end.
Very sad.
Very sad, very tired. These lights are
It is, it's quite a glare you get in here. I'm wearing sunglasses next time.
So a few information before we leave. Well, thanks for joining us. It's great. Thanks for anyone who's hosted the event on Twitch and YouTube. Thanks for the support, supporting the hobby. And I'm glad I'm able to say this again. You know, up until like a few years back, we were saying, thanks for supporting the hobby for Wargames, and then we moved to bigger strategy games, and so it was like more about the community and the wider market. So thanks for supporting the hobby. If you want to support the hobby even more, get to the site for on Steam or on Slytherin or on many of the third-party stores and get some of the Wargames we've got discounted for you this week. It's the celebration of Wargames Week, so that's a good opportunity for that. We are going to, and I owe you an apology for that. We will be back live with Tea Time around November time.
So what you're saying is that it slipped?
It slipped,
right,
again.
Okay.
Yeah. Even marketing.
So next time you moan about one of our games slipping.
Even marketing delay stuff. We're moving office, as Ian was saying. We're moving office with a proper internal live studio, which we're building as we speak. So we're going to be back with Tea Time, with Newsroom, and all of our formats in November. I don't know exactly when, but we'll announce that when on the website. In November, we'll also start with a completely new Twitch schedule. We have a Monday dedicated to Matrix games, so it's going to be the Matrix Monday.
You can do the song.
I won't do the song,
okay.
but
I'm not doing the song.
Maybe one day. But so on Mondays we'll have only Matrix games on War Games. We've got so many releases in the next few weeks that it's pretty impressive. So make sure you check the site, you check our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, the Discord channels, and whatnot. So make sure you get up to date. Thanks, Ian, for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Really good to be here.
And we'll go out, eat something now, and you guys can go out and go and play some War Games whilst we celebrate for this reunion.
Yep, and Enzo's birthday.
And Enzo's birthday. Happy birthday, Enzo. It's well deserved. He's worked until late on his birthday, so big thank you to Enzo and his team for making all this happen. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.